What's
The
the
next
one up on
one
the list?
is if your relationship ends, you failed.
Mm.
If a relationship ends, you failed.
This one's hard for me
Okay, tell me.
because I agree with it completely. Like it's not hard for me because I'm like wanting to argue it
Okay.
and play devil's advocate. I agree completely. And there's a part of my brain that
Still sees it
still
that way.
sees it as failure.
That's when you still struggle with.
Yeah, still sees it as like I did something wrong
Mm-hmm.
and truthfully, I think that program for me comes from the perspective or comes from the place of thinking that it is my fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I am always the one that sabotages it or ruins it or does something wrong. And, so it's like the opportunity to correct those wrongdoings as opposed to just acknowledging like, yeah, that's not a failure. Sometimes relationships are the end, right? I've had a lot of relationships that have ended,
Right.
and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. You're like, we have so many relationships in our life, different kinds. And I think that this one applies. It's not just to romantic relationships. I think this one applies to friendships, to coworkers, to any type of relationship that it's either you made it work and now you're lifelong whatever, or it's a fail. Like somebody's messed up, somebody's been betrayed. It's a failure instead of like people just like it's the reasons. That one?
That's it.
I love that.
I was going to say, you've got a thing, right?
It's not mine. It's not mine, but I say
We heard about it on a TikTok reel on Instagram. Somebody was saying it about somebody else. Go ahead.
It's people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And it's such a freeing thing to feel like you don't have to. I learned like holding on to everything. You're supposed to hold on and you do whatever it takes to make it work. And this will go into another one, but you do whatever it takes to make it work. It's the stand by your man. It's the stand by you always, always, always give everything, expect nothing. And like they have to work. They have to work. And if they don't work, then key the abandonment, key the everything. You're alone, you're being just abandoned. It's all of the ways. I'm doing a terrible job at expressing it.
I don't think you are at all, Ben.
That was definitely an understanding that I had. It was like people are supposed to be there and stay. And when they don't, it's loss, which is really, really funny kind of to think about that. And not in a mean way, because again, but everybody you're supposed to meet is supposed to be in your life and never leave.
Right.
Like how could that possibly, that's impossible. How could that work?
Yeah. The intellectual side of me is like, oh yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part of me that's like, I'm the worst person ever. I'm the worst friend ever. I've let friends down. I've got friends out there that like are still like, what happened, Craig? We were such good friends. Where did you go? And that's the narrative that I tell myself, right? Not that friends are sitting out there mourning the relationship, but that I failed them and that I failed the friendship.
Yeah.
And that, because I do struggle with that dynamic of thinking that, especially when they're really good friends, I think this one lands for me more with friends than, because there's some exes that I have that I'm like, yeah, it's probably best that they're not in my life in any way, shape, or form anymore, right? There's definitely some of those that's like, there's a reason for that one. Haven't figured it out yet, but
I don't know.
I'm glad that they're not hanging around.
There's probably some exes that maybe shouldn't be in my life anymore.
It's one of the really nice things about now living in Tennessee, where I don't have to fucking panic that we're going to run into an ex-girlfriend
live in Texas,
Walmart.
And that's why you hang your hat in Tennessee?
Yeah, that's a nice thing.
What happens when you run into an ex?
Something uncomfortable happens.
Right.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when there are some of those that, didn't end well, that are difficult. But back to the friends thing, right? I can relate more to it from that lens. And it's really challenging for me. I have a list of friends that I'm not really friends with anymore. I'm not in contact with them anymore. I don't have, quote unquote, any sort of friendship or communication with them anymore. And I carry guilt for that. And I'm constantly running through that. Not constantly, but, I'll have like the greatest hits of friends that I have lost contact with. And it's almost like I don't even know if grieving is the right word. Some of those relationships I needed to grieve, but I didn't allow for that friendship to have its natural course and come to an end, at least within my own thoughts and my own feelings and my emotions. So maybe there's some work there for me to just go like, you know, I loved that guy. We had a great friendship. Everything was amazing. And it served a purpose in a time. I might not understand it totally for all that it was, but I can see it for what it was. And I can just, you know, wish them well instead of constantly being like, I need to text them. I should really reach out to them. Because you'll see it. Like you'll see something, you know, you'll see a post of theirs pop up on social media and you'll be like, oh yeah, I need to send that guy a text. I need to reach out and see what they're doing. And then you never do. And then the weight of that and the narrative of that is that I'm failing in some way. I'm a piece of shit. I didn't reach out. Sorry, dude. I didn't, you know, whatever the case may be. And all of that I think is just silliness. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I think it goes towards this thing where, because a relationship ends doesn't mean that it was a failure. Yeah.
I see that. But I do, because you just brought up on how, and there's 2 friendships that have ended. And I very much cherished both of them. And it's really because of how I showed up. Or actually, it's not because of how I showed up. It's because how I didn't. It's because
that's the narrative you have.
Well, it is the narrative, but it's also the fact. You know what I mean? They were showing up and I wasn't. And I had excuses. You know, sometimes it was fear. Another time I used money as an excuse. I didn't have the money to. And I found it too hard. And not that the friendship was hard, not that they were hard, but where I was emotionally at that point, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to keep up with the relationship. I wanted to so bad, but I did not have it. I didn't. And some relationships can sustain that. Some relationships can sustain long periods of, you know, you just pick up and go. And I have one of those that sustains that. And this one of them kind of did for a while, and then it just didn't. And then it stopped. And so I definitely feel, I guess I can look at it. It's like, it's not a failure. I didn't fail. If the relationship was supposed to continue, if the friendship was supposed to continue, it would have. It absolutely would have. And if it was supposed to continue, I would have been able to do things differently, or they would have been able to do things differently. Right. So I know it was a season, right? One was a season. But I'm going to remember them and hold so much love for them for my lifetime, even though I don't get to express my love to them. And when I've kind of I put a bit, 2 of them actually, I put a bit out and I got, I don't know how to say it. I guess it's not what I'm ready to talk about, but I definitely feel that failure aspect of it. If a relationship doesn't, to some point, I haven't felt that with a partner though. I've never felt I felt it that. That's not true. When I first got divorced, I struggled with the fact that I was the only woman in my family that had got a divorce.
Interesting.
I struggled with that for a minute because I felt, and then other women started doing it, but I felt like I've been witness to a lot of bad relationships and they stuck it out, right? And then I just felt like I've let everyone down because I didn't figure out how to stick it out. But that was short-lived.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.